here. Sorry for the slight chaos, but here we are.
No, this is perfect. I knew Misty would be able to figure it out. She's way better than either Kimberly or myself.
Oh, definitely. I guess. Do you guys want to? Are we good to get started, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Oh, the recording's already started. It looks like so. Make sure. Looks like I might have missed you that the recording started, but if not, I'll let you do it. We are starting our first spring Learn to Discern webinar. It's anti-social media, the cost of social media. And if you don't mind, please mute your mic and turn your cameras off. So what are the costs of social media? And our presenters today are Jane Gray, Angela Thurman, and I will be your moderator. My name is Kimberly Cox. And I'd like everybody to please welcome our guest, Jane Gray, and I'm going to let Angela, do you want to introduce?
Absolutely. So I have had the pleasure of knowing Jane Gray for quite a few years, and she is a therapist focusing on anxiety, depression, and self-esteem issues. She has worked with the Children's Advocacy Center of Denton County. She studied at Loyola Marymount University, Gonzaga University, and Liberty University. So I guess you're pretty into the basketball that's going on right now with Gonzaga. And she is currently a therapist at Living Perspective Counseling in Flower Mound, Texas, supervised by Emily Strain. So welcome, Jane.
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So what is so bad about social media? You know, the social media was really trumpeted as a way to reach out to people that you haven't seen for a while. And we hear all the stories about, you know, like people that were adopted and they find their birth parents and, you know, long lost twins and they find each other, or you find your buddy from the war and it's just like all roses and kisses and everything is wonderful. But it is the cake. So Jane, what do you think?
You know, I think I agree with you. It's brought a lot of very positive things into people's life. It's restored relationships. It's created relationships. It allows a space to, you know, share our thoughts and feelings, and kind of just really expand on our identity. Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here. Okay. So
you know, the social connectedness piece is huge. You know, the problem that we're seeing is this wave of, getting lost in our identity and creating this different identity, and then of course the confusion between, you know, our perception of self and our reality of self. And that's where I think some of the anxiety is coming in.
Okay, so when you say your self-identity, this is such a great slide that you provided. Explain what you mean when you say reinvention versus self-acceptance.
So, you know, here what we're looking at is it's the good old Dolly challenge that came about in 2020, and it really kind of gives a good idea of really how we're representing ourselves so differently on so many different platforms, you know. So obviously, you know, Dolly's all, you know, trim and tailored in the LinkedIn where she's supposed to be professional, you know, and then you've got Dolly down on Tinder, you know, which kind of expresses herself in a totally different way. And so now Dolly's got 4 identities. And, you know, so, you know, her perception really of herself is divided into 4. And there's some confusion there. There's, you know, which one is she going to be? Which one am I going to be? You know, how have I filtered myself today? Who am I? What's real? And, you know, what's my real life versus my avatar life, right?
Right. Right. And the other thing, I mean, the problem that I can see too is if I have access to all of these versions of Dolly, how do I know which one to, she is today? Like, maybe I am, if I'm going to date her, I want that Tinder version. If I'm going to hire her, I want the LinkedIn version. But, if I see all these different versions, and I'm thinking a lot about our kids, like, I ask my own children if they meet people on Hinge, how do you know that that's who they really are? Like, how do you know it's not some maniac out there, And horrifyingly, the answer was, I don't.
Well, they don't know. And, of course, we're seeing this a lot in the counseling room is, a lot of issues coming into the counseling room are, adolescents who have connected with an identity that they perceive as real, but that actually has completely different motivations, for its use. And, we don't know because, this is a medium that we're not really reading body language. We're not building trust. We're getting a perceived sense of safety. And sometimes that safety just really isn't what we perceive it to be.
Okay, I like one thing that you said was there's no body language. And I know that when I first started teaching online, I had my boss tell me sarcasm doesn't work well online because I tend to be a very sarcastic person. And
Right.
that's a great point that you just said. If there's no body language, if I can't like look at you and see that you're joking or you're sort of making a double entendre, I've got to take it all at face value, right?
You do. And here's the problem is that, there's a filter. We all have our own filter in our brains of what's actually coming in. So even if your intention is, tongue in cheek, this is really funny, the impact is completely different. I might read that totally different to where I'm suddenly feeling rejected or unaccepted. Not at all what you intended. But because we don't have that body language or even, the facial expressions to go behind it to kind of read those nonverbal languages, we create our own understanding.
Got it. Which may or may not be the correct one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's going to come down to self-esteem. What has been our experience throughout our life? It all starts in childhood. How you were responded to and how you felt accepted or rejected. That comes from, our home life, and we kind of carry that through us, really kind of hone in on that in our teenage years as we're developing our identity. And if that's trouble to begin with, acceptance and rejection, it's going to be difficult to attain, especially on this kind of platform.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is funny because we have all seen, especially last semester, the webinar series was on the election. So this slide really speaks to that.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about self-expression and privacy or lack of privacy on social media.
Yeah, well, we're putting ourselves out there, and there's kind of like this contagion of emotion, and we're kind of getting reinforced, when there's a certain, crowd that, of course, like you brought up politics, it was huge, and there were so many comments and so much like swarming activity and group activity and this contagious, you know, tangent out and all these people following and it's group mentality. There's power in a group, right? And so
Right.
we do get a little more bold in our opinions when we're on stage, right? It's performance related. There's a screen that, there's a little more power behind the screen versus when you're actually, out in public speaking to someone face to face. Generally, we're a little more controlled face to face.
Right.
And so we're seeing that arguing and that impact that the argument and is having on the followers, and so a lot of times that attacks self-esteem. People are attacking each other. Like what was a good example was I saw something. It was like for example, somebody says, I prefer bananas over mangoes. And then the next person comes on, well, you don't even know what you're talking about. What about pineapples? And you don't know enough. Why don't you do your research?
Right.
Everything coming up with some argument, it's all kind of a power play.
Right. And it does seem like, and I have seen this, firsthand, where people will say online, like, what do you think? Or what's your opinion? And we've all heard from teachers, an opinion can't be wrong. I mean, it can maybe be misguided or whatever it is, but if I think this guy's blue and you think this guy is, aqua, it's all in perception. But yet online, if you say something like what you just said, oh, I really like mangoes, people feel totally okay going, you are such an idiot. Only
Right.
idiots like mangoes. And you're like, what? And it just all of a sudden, I mean, it is enough to make the sane person just say, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to be attacked for just throwing something out there that shouldn't even divide people so much. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's kind of a false sense of bravado that is happening, you see the slide and, it's what we do. We all read through it and like, oh, I can't wait for the next comment. What's the next person? And then we kind of start judging. Can you believe this idiot just came on and said this about, the apples, I mean, it's just what we do. And we get reined in. This platform, it's designed to be addictive. We're all, looking for the likes and when are they coming and who's responding and we fish for likes but it's designed that way. It's very much like a slot machine. We would you play the slots if you knew you were never going to win?
Good point. Good point. And what you just, the thing you said about begging for likes, I like that because think about if in the real life, when what I'm talking about is face to face, I would never go around and say, do you like me? Do you like my outfit? Do you like my hair? Do you like the way I look? But that's what we're doing online, right?
Yeah, we are. It comes down to brain chemistry. We're getting that reward. We're getting, we're releasing dopamine. It's the feel good chemical. It's linked to pleasurable activities. Like sex and food and social interaction. But we're getting that from the likes and the responses from the outfit or the hair or the girlfriend or the car or, whatever. It's really addictive.
Right. And the other thing that I think is so interesting is if you go on, like Instagram or whatever, like I'm always telling my students, please don't get your facts from some, music superstar or a movie star or whatever. Get your facts, from a reputable source. But it's also interesting how our perception of what's okay is shaped and has been shaped by social media, isn't it?
Well, and I think that's where the anxiety is coming in because, our perception may or may not be matching our belief. So maybe we have like a core belief of, I wouldn't, it's not right to, attack people or whatever, or say my opinion, but yet on social media, we're seeing that, we're doing it, we're being conditioned to it, and the perception is, hey, you know what? It is okay to do that. It's okay to hurt people. It's okay to attack people. It's normal.
Huh.
It becomes normalized, because we're seeing it all the time.
Yeah, and you're kind of rewarded for making snarky comments because people will like those, right?
Yeah. And now there's this kind of cognitive dissonance, in yourself going, that's not me. Why am I doing that? I don't even like to do that, but I'm doing it. I can't help doing it, because people are, now they're following me. Now maybe I'm becoming an influencer.
Right. Interesting. And I like this slide where it says, like it's almost like you're creating like an avatar of yourself, connecting profiles, but yet at the same time neglecting the people around you, your real life, friends and family. Do you see this a lot in your practice?
Yeah, and I know you say you like this slide, and this slide really kind of makes me sad because I see this so often, people coming in and honestly, especially, I mean, COVID hasn't helped. Having a pandemic and being isolated has not helped this. Obviously, social media use is a great way to not be isolated. But, so many people are coming in and their group, their friends, who they're calling their friends, are actually people that they game with, in different states. That becomes their friends. They don't even have anybody local. And so interacting with people, in person and getting that sense of safety and connection in person, it's inverted right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to feel like these people that your online followers are your friends.
Yeah. And it's not really a real relationship. You're not really doing life. You're kind of, supporting each other and liking each other and have the same interests and all that stuff. But are you really, expressing your feelings? Are you, sharing your thoughts, your beliefs, things like that? I mean, what we're doing is we're losing the ability to really identify and share with our feelings. I mean, there's only so many emojis, right?
Right.
And that's kind of where we're now labeling ourselves through emojis, as opposed to really acknowledging, I'm really having a hard time. I'm feeling sad. But, instead we put the sad face up or the crying face, and that's how we're learning how to express ourselves.
Right. Right. Yeah. And another part of that I could see is people that sort of live vicariously through other people and allow other people to have the experiences that you wish you could have, but yet somehow that almost dampens people's motivation to go out and have those experiences themselves. Like people that say, oh, I wish I could, travel, or I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that. It's almost like if I see someone else doing it, maybe I'm going to let that substitute for me attempting to do that, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, it can unmotivate you, but it can also really kind of make you question yourself. Oh, well, they're all going on a vacation. My life sucks because I don't go on vacation, because I don't have the money, or because I need to work, or because I need to study, whatever it is. And so we kind of turn it inward and internally struggle with, comparing ourselves and feeling envious to others. And, again, here we're contributing to anxiety.
Right, right. A little FOMO. And it's funny because I've had to tell, my own children that people only post their best bits. So when you look at someone and you go, wow, they have the coolest life and they're so good looking, they're always fixed up and they're always doing fun things. No, they're not. That's only what they post. They're not, no one posts the picture of themselves, right when they get up in the morning, or after, somebody broke up with them or whatever. And so this FOMO, it does make it look like everybody is having a way better life than me.
Yeah, it's a distorted lens. And I think, when we're using social media, we have to keep that in mind and just retain that fact that this is a distorted lens. There's so many filters out there. We love filters. We hate filters. We need filters, right? We all do it. We crop our pictures. We cut out our, bigger arm we don't want in the picture. We crop, out what we don't want. We do use beauty face. We widen the eyes, narrow the jaw, whatever we do. And it just comes down to, what's real and what isn't.
Right, right. And to be honest, if I had the skill to do that, I would probably I would do it, but I usually just go, oh, post the picture. What the heck? People know what I look like anyway. But so this slide really spoke to me because of the comparison between that third point, caring for children, and that was a real. That is shocking.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah. So I spend more time, trying to impress people I don't even know than I do taking care of my own flesh and blood.
Yeah, and so think about that. Think about how that's rolling around in your brain, even if subconsciously. If that's somewhere in there, the guilt and the shame that's associated with that. What's that doing to you? Is it helping you or is it hurting you? It's in there,
Yeah. And what's it doing to our kids? Like I know I get really irritated if I'm at lunch or if I'm talking to someone and they're looking at their phone, that drives me crazy. And so now I think, what do my kids see? Do they see that I am more involved with my screen than I am with them? And what am I doing to my kids if that is if my actions are saying I am more concerned about somebody in, Paris, France, and what they posted about the Eiffel Tower than I am about what's going on with you.
Yeah.
But
at the same time, for their generation, this is the normal. And so it's really about, how do I manage the normal, for my best of mental health? It's not change. You can see here on this slide that, the line graphs are getting higher and higher. As far as how much we're spending social networking. That's not going to change, most likely. So, how do we adapt? How do we kind of maintain, a real life presence, so that it doesn't impact our mental health?
So these are some of the things that these are the negative impacts. And I can see every single one of these, like the second one, the passive exposure to language of post. I remember when all of the, I think we both have a son similar age, but all of the Fortnite and all that came out, and they're so violent. And they were talking about how everyone becomes desensitized to the violence because they are exposed to it. And so I'm guessing that what this means is when we see, like we had mentioned earlier, people fighting online, you see it enough that it almost becomes like, oh yeah, that's the way it is. I mean, is that what that's saying?
Yeah, we're being exposed to things and becoming conditioned to them. And again, that goes back to, what is the core value of myself and how am I presenting myself socially? So, and then there's the anxiety in between those two, that conflict anyway. So, if you have, depending on how you were raised or what your core value is, if it's important to you not to be exposed to language, say, for example, that's in there, that core value. But now, there's this constant exposure when you're playing Fortnite or, whatever game you're playing, and that language is there, the content is there. What's that doing? It's not meshing with your core belief or your core value. And so how do you manage that? So it's basically, that negatively impacts your mood.
I could see that. And what is emotional contagion?
It's like what I was saying earlier with even the mango example. We it gets contagious, and now suddenly all the people who prefer the mango over the banana, now they're mad, and now everybody, it's contagious, and everybody is kind of following that trend. You saw this in with the whole election. I mean, there was major emotional contagion with during that season.
Yeah, it's almost like mob behavior, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that. That's very interesting. Yeah, and then of course, there's a dark side, a darker side. Do you see a lot of your patients come in that have been victims of cyberbullying?
Oh, of course. That's just something that's out there. Obviously, it seems like it's more prevalent with females, but that's not to say it doesn't happen to males. And people are taking the opportunity to be a lot bolder over social media than they are face to face. And so this is a great slide of I like this slide, because you're just this guy is just beating him up through the screen, and it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this though. Why do we let it happen? Like this slide shows, and I mean, I've done it too. It's initially somebody posts something really horrible, and I guess it's so shocking that what I should do is just shut my computer. But it's like you can't help but engage, and it just is like a downward spiral.
Yeah, and so it's going to come back to self-esteem and really good boundaries. Boundaries and self-esteem go hand in hand. If your self-esteem is such that, you are confident in who you are and you are not super sensitive to feeling rejected, then, you're going to have a boundary that says, it's not okay to talk to me like that. And, peace out.
That's true. Okay, and then there's even a darker side. So it's bad enough that, some people are on there and you're being exposed to this. But you mentioned earlier that people create different personas. So human trafficking has been linked to every type of social media platform. And this is sort of the catfish thing where people create a different persona. Maybe I'm a woman befriending another woman, or a man, and he thinks I'm hot, and I somehow get them involved with this. I mean, I think what we need to realize with this human trafficking, this is real, right? I mean, this isn't just like, we're not just doing these scare tactics. I mean, do you have any experience with anyone who's been touched by human trafficking as a result of social media?
I have had clients who, of course, we've screened for a vulnerability to be trafficked. I have not had someone in my office who's actually been trafficked, but I would agree with you. It is absolutely real. It's a thing, and I think it's just really important to educate everybody, parents and children, that it is a real thing and it is out there, and to really contribute to building the things that can try to, build up the child so that they don't have that tendency to need that attention from, someone else and get them in a position to be trafficked.
So when you said you screen for vulnerability, so tell me who is more vulnerable? Like what if I am looking at my students, or I am looking at my own children, or what should I look for? What's a warning sign?
Well, I think I've mentioned self-esteem, several times, so far, and that's a huge part of it. Having a support system within the family is a huge part of it. Having core values, knowing every child should know what their core values are, and learn how to expand on them and how to, align themselves with their own core values and keep people in their lives that also align with their core values. So, self-esteem, having a support group of someone in their lives that, can hold them accountable or that they can go to talk, having proper boundaries, and then decreasing their time on social media. Less than 2 hours is more indicative of lower depression and anxiety symptoms. Ultimately, less than 30 minutes research has shown is the lowest symptoms of depression and anxiety as far as time on social media. So that vulnerability really, that there's a lot of factors that go into that, from family of origin, background, predisposed genetics, there's just a lot. So, I think the best places to start would be self-esteem, boundaries, and values.
Okay. And I'll to prove that that is the case, I'm going to tell a funny story about my own self. So I went through, as many girls do, a really, really ugly stage where I had all at the same time, glasses, braces, and I was by far the tallest person in my grade. And, but every day my parents would say, "Oh my gosh, you're so smart. You're so beautiful." And I believed it to the point where when my husband saw those pictures, he said, "Oh gosh, that must have been like a really bad year." And I'm like, "No, it really wasn't, because I didn't realize how bad I looked because of the positive, the parent." So I don't think that we can emphasize enough how important it is to raise strong children. And I think sometimes people are afraid of saying, "Oh, I'm not going to like praise them too much because I don't want them, to get the big head or whatever." But I don't even think that there is such a thing. I mean, you tell me, is there such a thing as praising our kids, and not about fake stuff, but building them up? My view is always like, I might as well build them up because someone is going to be tearing them down pretty soon. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, yeah, I can't agree enough. Creating that self-esteem in our children is vital to where they're going to be later in life. And like I said earlier, it starts very, very early. The thing with the brain is constantly scanning. It's like a Google scan all day long of, am I safe? Am I connected? And this starts way back to being, a newborn, and being, your primary provider, being attuned to you, attuned to your needs, and really that provider even co-regulating your emotions with you, so that, as you age, you've learned how to self-regulate. And, that goes back to that vulnerability. A lot of us don't know how to self-regulate. We don't understand our emotions. So really teaching children about their emotions, and teaching them that, to feel safe, and providing a safe place for them, is a huge part of like what you experienced, that level of confidence. That's how you felt in your body at the time. You felt safe. Your nervous system and your brain were like, "Hey, you know what? We're good."
Yeah.
Or, if I'm so tall, I'm good with me. And
Right.
good for you that you had that experience, but not a lot of people do. The beauty of that is it's never too late. It's a totally learnable trait. And, it just goes back to, doing the work to achieve it, having that support in your life, to help you with that.
Okay, so as an economist, I want to bring this back around. So the cost of social media, we've discussed. Wait, can you go back to the there? Thanks. We've discussed the emotional cost and the cost basically to yourself as a person. But I'd also like to point out that there are economic costs as well. So we need to, I think we all need to emphasize the fact that this isn't just about making you feel bad. This can affect your future, your income, the way that you can provide for your family. If you post something that shows you, slamming down shots, that's going to come back to haunt you, right? I mean, have you ever run across, I know that there's been issues with young people sexting, sending pictures of themselves. Not only is that illegal, but that is a great example of a photo that could come back to haunt you, right? So have you experienced that in your practice where people think, oh, it doesn't matter, and they don't seem to realize that it's there forever?
Yeah, I don't even think they get to that afterthought of it may be there forever, it may not. It seems to be really just in that moment, they have a need for some kind of acceptance. It seems like that's what's really generating that behavior. They are needing some kind of affirmation or some level of response, and so they think in their mind, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna sex this guy this, or I'm gonna sex this girl this, and they do that. And and in that moment, it's kind of like that feel good response, the dopamine, they might get that response from the receiver and say, wow, you look hot. And so why wouldn't they do that again? Because in that moment, now their brain has learned a reward from the behavior. So it's tough to, kind of, the brain is going to do what it's going to do, and the brain likes the reward system. And so until you really, there's a hard consequence, it's hard to kind of change that behavior. So, the consequence, and I know we've talked about, we have kids, and I've seen this, in my own kids at school. It's a thing, kids send sex to their friends or their people. And guess what? Now that one picture, it has been, spread around, 1,000 people.
Right.
And that one picture is never going to go away.
Right.
Right. And now that becomes that person's identity. And if that happens at when you're 15, you're going to remember that at 25. Somewhere in your mind, that's going to be a memory. Somewhere out there, there's something about me. And to what degree does that affect your self-esteem or your confidence or your sense of self or your identity?
Right.
Because it was.
What I'm seeing that I didn't really get at the first, when we were first putting this together, is how your self-esteem, which has now become so enmeshed with social media, can be a positive force in your life, or it can basically be like a train wreck, right?
It is the force in your life. That's my thought.
That's so interesting. I guess I'm sort of just coming to that reality. So, what can we do? How can we encourage our listeners? And if you are a listener and you have children, I hope you're picking up on the importance that you have in their lives. When you have patients that come in with these issues, what do you tell them? What is your prescription for them to help themselves become not addicted?
So, I think the most important place is to kind of start with, the what, what is going on, what's happening, what are you doing, and then of course we get to the why, and the why is really exploring, what's it been like up until this point? What has been your support system? What's been your experience? What's your, what was your upbringing like? Why did you get to this point? you know, and then once we kind of do that exploring, we move into the how, how are we going to work on this? You know, how are we going to find connection in a safe place? How are we going to, collaborate with others, so that, you're making the best choices for you. I think trickled or sprinkled through all of those, what, how, and why is the most important thing is some compassion to self. I think staying mindful of, being in the present, not worrying about what's happening tomorrow or what happened yesterday, but just stay present, and offer yourself some compassion and some kindness, and say nice things about yourself. And this is a good slide to kind of, wrap that up, self-respect, self-worth, and self-love, they all start with the self, and stop looking outside of yourself for value, but really kind of have that intrinsic need to respect yourself, flaws and all. And so I use that word. I love this word, blossom. We all have flaws. None of us are perfect. But, Flossom is someone who embraces their flaws and knows that they are awesome regardless.
I love this too. I think this is so great. And, I do want to let all of our listeners know that TCC has a help center. We have care teams. We have resources. If you or anyone is suffering from any of the things that we've talked about, if you feel like you're being stalked, if you're nervous about yourself or your children or your safety, anything like that, we are here to help you. And we would love for you to reach out to any of your instructors and just say, hey, I need a little bit of help. You'll be referred on. It's completely anonymous, and we're here to help you. So I'd like to say thank you so much to Jane Gray for being with us today. I think this has been awesome, not flossom, but this has been awesome. This has been so much fun. I want to remind our listeners that the link to rank your attendance is in the chat box. So you could just click on that link, make sure you fill out the Google Doc form. And if your instructors require you to send in a summary or whatever, do that. But this has been a wonderful webinar. And Jane, I cannot thank you enough for being with us.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure being here. And really, if any of the listeners ever want to, reach out and contact me for anything that they're struggling with, I think my contact information, is associated with this. And, I know you have resources, but I also provide telehealth services for therapy as well.
So explain that just really quick, and I will put your contact in the chat, but explain, what do you mean when you say, because, okay, maybe I'm that person that says, I'm embarrassed to go to a counselor because that means I'm crazy and I don't want people to see me going in there. So maybe what you just said is for me. So explain when you say telehealth, what is that?
So telehealth is it's seeing a counselor, and you just do it, from a secure platform. It's HIPAA approved, so it's completely private. And you just meet with your counselor. So I have clients who, that's all they do is telehealth. They don't have to come into the office, and we work on whatever, collaboratively, whatever issues that the client wants or needs to work on. And it's just like counseling. We meet once a week or once every other week. And, it does provide that support system that I've mentioned several times, and, helps you, give you the tools to get through some difficult times so that, your life can have less symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Okay, that is great to know. And it's typically covered under insurance, right?
So it just really depends. I don't take insurance, but some people do, but I also offer a reduced rate because of that reason. So, I'm here, if anybody wants to talk about that. And, sometimes, counseling doesn't have to be forever. Sometimes, simply going to, 6 or 8 sessions can make a huge impact on how you view the world and just your lens overall.
Okay, that's great to know. Okay, well, once again, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to all of our attendees for being a part of the first webinar of the spring series. We will be having another webinar next month. So our second webinar is on March the 2nd, and we hope to see everyone there. So we are signing off. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Jane.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.